Eller den alderstid. Ja, det skal være. Så er det smart med det. Så skal jeg bare finde en ting.
What? You don't want to put it up there? No. I just spoke Danish.
A little bit.
Kameloso. Spielschniegel.
Fiels. Flügel. Nattelbud.
First digital talks? Oh. Funny how I shouldn't talk on the phone.
No, it's fine.
It's funny how, like, when it comes to stuff like this,
Yeah.
how many familiar faces are actually,
Yeah.
like, everyone from X-Science here. Oh, fuck. Why? No. I'm confused. As soon as you walk into the room, like, pow!
They see me trolling. Patrolling.
Gorilla time.
I really have to start using Twitter groups because this is getting crazy. I'm following like 200 people or something.
I don't know how the group thing works. Is it lists?
Yeah, I think so. And it keeps starting. Oh, god damn it! My internet also just sometimes dies and it doesn't reboot by itself.
Nice.
Super fucking weird. Oh fuck you. Heard of it. I think it's some.
Do they have anything in the App Store?
Find it. I think it's Flash games, but I think it's semi-respectable Flash games. I'm not sure.
Hi everyone. Can you hear me? Ooh, hi. Welcome. It's good to see all of you.
Hi.
Hi. My future husband. Oh. We're gonna marry on Sunday, by the way. Petri is gonna be one of the bridesmaids, so that's why we invited him over. Nice red dress. Well, basically, this is the kickoff of the indie track, and we start with the wonderful Petri over here. And we're very happy that you're all here. And as I said, he likes to wear dress. So I think we should all support that. I'll find one for you, Petri. Do you understand anything, Tim?
I don't really know. I remember yesterday, a few hours ago, I think I was in Germany somewhere. Then we started drinking, and suddenly free party, but now we're actually having talks and being serious, so now we have to make games serious. That didn't make sense at all.
We have to make games.
Yeah!
Can we get more support from the Mobile Line Games?
Mobile games. I don't know.
That was it. I think we should leave it to Petri.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully he didn't get drunk yesterday.
Did you?
I did. I'm still drunk. But yeah, come on.
Thank you. Yeah, we should probably swap this.
Did you make that?
Okay. So my name is Petri, and in case you didn't know, I'm mostly known for wearing dresses. And I made a game called Crayon Physics Deluxe, and it's a while back ago when I made that game. And they asked me to talk about, mainly about limitations. And I have to say that I'm somewhat unprepared, so I'm not sure how well this talk will go. But the good news is that I've had this talk at an assembly before, and they made a nice video recording of it. So if you don't quite understand what I'm trying to say, you can watch the video, and it's better explained there by me. So there's a good backup to this. So this talk is mostly like, there's two parts. The first part is I'm just going to discuss about this idea, which is actually kind of vague idea. It's not even meant to be anything taken very seriously. And then I'm just going to demo some games looking then through that lens or idea there. So yeah, limitations, why they are, in my opinion, kind of awesome. Usually when in games or in any other form of media, something kind of awesome appears out of nowhere, something kind of that changes things, and people all go crazy, like, oh my god, this was so cool and new, and whoever came up with this awesome thing. And but that's not usually how the creative process goes, at least in my opinion. Usually the creative process goes more like you see something totally awesome, and you're a creative professional person, and then you want to make your own version of that awesomeness. But you want to make it with a small twist, like you want to change the spaceships into orcs. But that's basically how it usually goes. And that ends up creating not a game copy, but a lame copy. That's usually what you end up doing, is you see this awesome thing, and then you end up kind of like copying most of it, but changing some minor things, and that's not very good or very original, but you kind of enjoy doing that. And once there are enough of these lame copies, these homages, these rip-offs, clones, you have something called a genre is born out of this. So this is usually the point where we stop talking about Doom clones and we start talking about first-person shooters or we stop talking about Doom 2 clones and we start talking about RTSs. And that's kind of like when there are enough of clones that the whole thing is kind of like established in a way. And this is not only in games, but this is also in music and films and kind of everything. So the real question is, where did this original awesomeness come from? This thing that nobody can see where the connections are, and this is totally fresh and new thing. And this is not meant to be as the only definite answer, but this is kind of like an interesting way of looking at it, and probably not even very interesting if you've seen the assembly tool. So the secret to creativity is knowing how to hide your sources. And that's kind of pretty true. At least I've noticed it myself when trying to be kind of creative. So this is how I see this awesomeness possibly happening. You're an intelligent designer and an intelligent creative person, and you see something totally awesome and new, and you get totally inspired by it, and you want to make your own version of it. But there are problems. There are all kinds of limitations in your way of doing this. And you don't have necessarily all the resources, you don't have the manpower, you don't have the skills to do the exact thing that they did before. But because you're kind of like an intelligent designer, instead of like trying to make a carbon copy of that, you evaluate your situation and your lack of skills or your limitations. There's some possible limitations you might have. So this is you evaluating your lack of skills. It's actually when you're kind of like creating something and you realize that you don't have enough manpower to make it look pretty, like you're just like, fuck, if I had 5 artists, this game would look so cool and it would be so awesome having all this cool graphics in it. And you're banging your head against the wall, and then you realize that maybe I can use this as a kind of benefit for my game. So let's say you can't draw for shit and you want to make a physics puzzle game, and then you figure out that, oh, because I can't draw for shit, I can disguise it as a 5-year-old's drawing and make all the graphics with crayons. And then the good benefit about that is that you can cheaply produce all the levels and all the graphics. But the other good benefit of that is that you can allow players to create things in the game, which allows for the whole interface of Crayon Physics. So one of the ways of looking at where this original awesomeness came from is it was meant to be a carbon copy of something, but the creator had all kinds of limitations, and he had to kind of like navigate his true way through the maze of limitations, and what ended up coming out is something that's kind of different, because you can kind of like see the connection to the original material because of all the limitations. Just gonna skip some examples from film, but you can think like when Pulp Fiction came out, there were so many bad clones of Pulp Fiction that we've all kind of already forgotten about. But people rarely realize how much of like Pulp Fiction's thing was that Quentin had to make the movie with these sort of limitations and finding this way of making them look good. The other way around this is actually like, the other way around this is to pick your inspirations from another media that you're actually creating in. So if you're making a game, don't select your inspiration from other games. Just look at some bizarre and weird movies and try to like make a game out of them, or look at some paintings. It's a good way of disguising because people don't usually associate things from different media. Just don't do Aliens or Saving Private Ryan. And if you actually look at the history of computer games, it's filled with limitations. It started out with lacking a lot of graphics power, a lot of CPU memory. There's been a lot of interface limitations so far. And if you look at AAA games, most of the innovation in AAA games comes from their controllers. Basically, they're given a controller and they want to make some game. They want to make some game work on that controller. So they have to figure out new ways of making that game work on that controller. And I actually think single player is a limitation. Like games before computer games, most of the games were multiplayer games. So single player kind of started putting this nasty limitation to games, which kind of mutated into this bizarre own thing, which is kind of cool. But anyway, that's enough of the talking part. Now I'm going to show you some games that I think illustrate this idea better. So we start out with what I call big pixels. This is actually used quite a lot in games, at least in indie games. And the idea is that instead of going for the most awesome graphics you can do, you limit yourself to a very small resolution and kind of ugly pixelated graphics that is kind of stylized. And there are certain benefits of doing this. Just going to show you one of my favorite examples of this. So this is a game called Star Gardens made by Lauren Smith. Do I have audio? No?
Star Garden, what a great game.
You play?
Yeah. Mobile.
Yes. So Star Garden is very, this is a very pixelated platformer game, very indie in its sense. It doesn't have anything very special. It's a platforming. But Lauren limited himself to this kind of super big pixels and just 4 colors basically. And he ended up creating a pretty interesting platformer game. It's kind of hard to see why this game is actually, this is a big benefit for the game to do this in pixelated style, but once you play it, you kind of realize how polished up all the movement in this game is. He has very specific animations for almost all the different states that the player can have, like jumping with your gun out, jumping without your gun out, jumping from running, jumping without running. And once you hit the highest spot where you jump, there's a small animation in it. And it feels very precise, you can actually play this pixel precisely all the platforms, so you can let go. And it feels very good and solid. And then the reason why it feels good and solid is that he basically, I think he had the time, because he selected this kind of very easy to do graphical style. He had the time to spend on honing the controllers to make them feel really good. I'm going to show you another example that kind of takes benefit of doing kind of graphic graphics and big pixels. It's called Standard Bits, and it's by Mark Johns. And the other good benefit if you do big pixels is that you have a lot of manpower to do big ass worlds. You can do such a huge world such a quickly and such cheaply. Standard Bits is, in my opinion, a very clever game that takes advantage of this. You're basically playing as this one pixel down there in the lower right corner, and you go around finding things in here. That's a save point. I think all of these are enemies.
It's mess up. Shit.
It's a music video.
Yeah. This game is fucking epic. Oh shit, oh shit.
good.
Yeah, man.
What?
But this was made for Gamma 256, and the limitation actually was to make a game with resolution less than 256 times 256. And it's a clever game that takes totally advantage of that in a very stylized way. Another game that kind of takes advantage of not necessarily big pixels, but using extremely bad graphics. Just like making really bad graphics and using that as a style. It's one of my favorite games called Shit Game, made by Mark Chance as well. And not only does this game take advantage of the fact that all the graphics are crap, it also takes the fact, like, it uses the fact that Mark couldn't actually program properly. So the platformer physics in this game are fucked up, and there's a big bug in there. Like if you've ever actually programmed
Yeah.
If you've actually ever programmed like a platformer game, you've probably ran into the problem of like when you jump into a tile from underneath it. In order to fix that, you have to kind of like move the character on top of the tile, and which is technically a bug if you jump from underneath and then you end up on top. He ended up with this bug in this game, and instead of fixing it, he decided to make it a game mechanic in it. So instead of like, you can jump on top of platforms, but if you actually jump into the platforms, you end up going through them. And the levels are designed so that you actually have to go up.
That's no doubt. I want to play this game.
What?
Oh, he lost interest. This game has everything.
Fuck.
Anyway, that's Shit Game. I'm going to show you another game, which is a really good game that takes advantage of really bad graphics. It's called Space Funeral. Among my favorite game from the year 2010.
Which is just horse made out of legs.
This is made by a guy called the Catamites, also known for the classic game Murder God 4. Yeah, this is a JRPG game. The first selection means new game, the second one is load game, and the third one is exit.
Oh.
So you play as this bizarre character, and you can kind of talk to people, and they have intelligent things to say.
So it's Pokemon. It's like Zelda. This game is hilarious. Played it for like an hour and my mind just... Song.
This may seem to kind of like random things, but they actually mean a lot in the game. Once you play more and more, you actually figure out that they're not as random as they seem.
Yeah, man. The 6 and all the speed making you like, yeah, fuck.
So one of the things he actually did cleverly is he ended up making this big ass world, which it's a lake horse.
So they puke blood. What's up with the Legos?
So the lake horse is actually a horse made of human legs. You can tell from the graphics. And
That's 84 years ago. I never thought about it again.
I highly recommend you play this game with time because it's actually really good. And before you go to the Wizard's Cavern, you remember to save the game. It's just a friendly reminder because I know no one ever remembers to
The
save
Legos
before
told you,
that.
like, you'll follow my command.
Nice.
Play Space Bureau.
There's also kind of like other things you can do besides just taking advantage of like how fast you can produce things or how cheaply you can produce things. One of the more interesting things is, well, in my opinion, a bit more interesting is when people make games with like black and white graphics, like monochrome graphics, like in Limbo, where in Limbo they actually use that as to give them more time to spend more time polishing up all the animations and making everything look super nice and super beautiful. But you can do other things with black and white graphics. One of the more interesting things, downloaded is this game called Lost in Static by Sean Barrett. And it's an interesting game because if you take a screenshot of the game, it doesn't make any sense. But if it uses the motion of the graphics in order to kind of like mean different things. So you can see you're this guy at the bottom of this cave, and on to the left this thing kills you if you go there, you die. And you can walk past these things that kind of wobble. It's very
Oh man. Oh.
What only people with
Atlantic Games Come.
This game still just uses this mostly for graphical effect. But it's really cool in its way of like, instead of using graphics, it's using motion. Which actually reminds me, this is not a very good game, but I'm just going to show it to you as an example. It doesn't have anything to do with black and white graphics, but this is a match 3 game that uses, instead of matching same colored gems, you have to match the movement of the gems. So you have different types of movements. It'll make sense in a moment. So, this is actually extremely hard to play. Is that correct? No. Nope. suck at this. This is actually really hard to play, but it's interesting. It's not a very good game, but it's very interesting to play.
Left.
Is this correct? Fuck this game. So I was talking about monochrome games. I think I have.
Yeah, man.
I think you've probably seen this game before. If you haven't, it's very interesting. It uses the idea of negative space as a gameplay mechanic in a very interesting way. So you're a black and white guy, and you have to run to the door at every level. And you can jump. But the interesting thing comes in here is that you can shift your perspective. So you can swap to the other side, to the negative space, so you can actually like. It's not very useful at this level, but that's what it's like this is impossible to do without doing, so you have to go here.
Yeah, it's also 5 or 6 years old.
Were you 5 or 6 years old?
What? No, I think the game is 5 or 6 years old. Maybe not that. No, maybe not that much, but it's definitely a couple years old.
Screw you.
They made a Shift 2 as well. It's a great game. This is from the Port one as well. Port 1, because it had like the weird test subject thing. You know, like so many games that
There's another Flash game that kind of uses the same idea, or not necessarily, but it
London.
it's loaded.
When was it? A few months ago. When I just started here. It's awesome. Nitrome is a good website. They
Load this whole
Flash
up
games
at the
with
same
like all
time.
original.
All the Flash games, black and white. So this is another game that uses this closure by Tyler layout. This probably doesn't need to be black and white, but it benefits from it. The idea of this game is that only the parts of the level that you see exist. So if you walk off the cliff, you fall here. But you can pick up the lights here, which will allow you to move to places that would not be possible without this.
Forgot the book.
So you can almost kind of like think, instead of just figuring out how to make a game that just takes advantage of making cheap graphics, you can also think like how can you use the cheap graphics as a gameplay mechanic, or do something that's impossible in other cases, but because you have this limitation, you can kind of do them. Is this still loading? Let's keep at.
What's with the like? Oh. not playing the game.
Anyway, this is the kind of using the negative space, black and white, as a game mechanic instead of making things just look pretty. I think we have a few minutes to show. This is another game that kind of uses the graphics idea to its benefit.
More than almost 2 hours.
This was made by Sissy, so Casey, age 5, and Ryan, age 13. This was made at a game jam in Toronto last year.
Hi, my name's Sissy, and I freaking love ponycorn. They're the best food in the world because they're like ponies and unicorns. That's ponycorn! I don't have any ponycorns right now, so I'm gonna go get some. Come with me, it's my magical ponycorn adventure. I can go to rainbow stuff, visit new places. That's not a ponycorn, it's a gold on a coat. That's weird. Hi, Orange Boy. My name's Sissy.
Be nice, baby.
Me too. Got any gone? Wait, if I find any ponycorns, I'll put them in these gone. Wait, if I find any...
Be nice.
I see new rainbows.
How convenient.
I am a tiger, and I'm going to eat that ponycorn.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
It's the coconut. It's the coconut.
I'm going to eat it.
Close your eyes, tiger.
Okay. The ponycorn goes.
It's the coconut.
The coconut does nothing.
I am a big lazy dinosaur. I put ponycorns in cages.
You shouldn't do that.
But I totally am.
I have magic.
Do not.
There, magical color. Your mouth sound. I do like dumb apples.
Weak.
I can't open it without a key.
Just transform the dinosaur into a mouse.
Hi, Mr. Turtle. Do you love ponycorn?
Yes, I do. But I'm upside down.
Here, lift you over.
Thanks. Here's a ponycorn.
I got the pink ponycorn. I put it in the jar.
This is one of those things where Ryan used his limited limitation of having kids to his benefit. It's like making her do the story and the graphics in the game. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all the time I have. I hope during the game jam you think of like things you can think of some limitations and think of things you can kind of do with those limitations that other people probably can't do because they like good graphics or things like that. So thanks.
Everyone the pony coin. So,
Bye.
We're ready to